Hey yo, what's going on guys, it is your boy Robo Ron here, and today we're back on another video. Now today it is Valentine's Day. Yeah, that's right, and I won't actually be spending it alone. Someone probably thought I was, but you'd be wrong, because through the door is... And here it is, the F-14 Tomcat inside VTOL VR. So, this is how I am spending my Valentine's Day. And I do not care that... yeah. So, fuck it. We're going to fly planes. So, we're going to take the wheel lock off and we're going to taxi to the runway. This is the F-14 Tomcat inside VTOL VR. It is also known as the EF-24G because it actually has some electronic warfare capabilities, but we are not going to talk about them today. Plus I don't know how they work anyway, so we're just going to pretend they don't exist. So, the F-14 Tomcat was an aircraft that was produced and in use between the early 1970s till 2006, at least for the US. It is actually still operated in Iran, but yeah, the one that I'm on about is the American ones. So I'm just gonna turn left onto the last taxiway before the runway. And it was used by both the Navy and the Air Force. And today we're just going to talk about it. So let me line up straight on the runway, like that. Well, we'll break on a sec. So, the F-14 Tomcat, there is three versions. There's the A, the B, and the D. A was the first version, B was the upgraded version of the A, and the D has got some, like, more advanced electronical, like, capabilities over the A and the B, because the A and the B were, like, used in, like, the 70s and the 80s, all the way to the 2006, but, like, they were more of an analog aircraft than digital aircraft, so we'll take off and we'll talk about it more. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to sweep our wings, as this aircraft has variable sweep wings, which means that if I do that, the wings of the aircraft will come out, because this aircraft was also used on the carrier. So while those wings can be swept in to do supersonic speeds, they can also be swept in to save space on the carrier. So we're going to go full afterburner, take the wheel lock off, I'm going to put our flaps to 2, and it should actually take off by itself. I'm not even going to touch it. And like that, we are airborne. So I'm going to put my gear up, put my flaps up, just like that. And we are now airborne. So, the F-14 Tomcat replaced the F-4 Phantom II naval variant on the carrier. So if anyone knows what the F-4 looks like, it was used during the Vietnam War. Another twin-engine, twin-seat fighter jet, but the F-14 Tomcat replaced it because it was more advanced than the F-4 and could do a bit more, and it also had a better radar, and quite a beefy radar at that, because the F-14 Tomcat could carry the AIM-9 Sidewinder, which is a heat-seeker missile, Fox 2. It could carry the AIM-7 Sparrow, which is a Fox 1 semi-radar guided missile, and it could carry later down the line the AIM-120 AMRAAM, which is just a Fox 3 radar guided missile. But what it's most famous for is the AIM-54 Phoenix, which is another Fox 3 missile, radar guided missile, but it could go over 100 miles of range. And to be able to do that, the aircraft would need a pretty good radar. Luckily, this thing did. And the longest recorded Phoenix kill in distance was actually over 100 miles, unclassified. So there's no myth about that. It did actually do more than 100 miles. And it was a pretty beefy missile too, and it needed an aircraft like the F-14 Tomcat that had the weight, that had the thrust, to be able to carry it into those kind of situations, because the F-14 Tomcat had a few jobs. One of the jobs that I kind of most like about it was being on the carrier and being like fleet defense. So it would protect the carrier and stop any potential threats coming towards it. So having that 100-mile range missile really helped in situations like that.
Altitude.
And later down the line, the F-14 would be adapted to also do ground strikes, so it would eventually be able to carry some bombs as well, like laser-guided bombs, GBU-12s and unguided bombs, and also extra fuel tanks that we are going to get rid of in a second, because I've depleted them. I'm going to level out. And then we are going to sweep our wings back so we can break the sound barrier. Still on full afterburner. There you go. We are breaking the sound barrier. And then I'm going to jet scission my fuel tanks. Like that. And we have now got rid of them. Now, what's special to me about the Tomcat is it's one of the older style aircraft. So like I said earlier, it's a more analog kind of aircraft compared to something like the F-16 or like the F-22 Raptor. It doesn't have the Tomcat doesn't have stealth or anything like that because it's an old aircraft, but what it does have is, again, its sweep wings, which are also on aircraft like the B-1 Lancer, the Tornado, the F-111 Aardvark, and I think it's on one of the MiG Russian fighter jets, and I think the Russians also use it on some of their bombers as well. But yeah, what's special to me about the Tomcat is I kind of like old stuff like this. I'm gonna put my wings to water. There's more character to them because there's less computers involved. Yeah, there are still computers in it, but there's less. So the F-16 uses a fly-by-wire system. Aircraft like the F-14 don't. And yes, that means they're more expensive to maintain, and one of the reasons why the US eventually stopped using the Tomcat was because it was really expensive to maintain. I was just going to buzz the carrier a sec.
Altitude.
Hey guys.
Altitude. Pull up. Altitude.
Yeah, it was really expensive to maintain, and eventually they went, we should probably try and think of something else, and which they did. So when the F-14 replaced the F-4, later down the line, the F-14 was paired with the A-6, which was also on the carrier, but then the A-6 was replaced by the F-18 Legacy Hornet, which is the one with the round engine air intakes. And then in 2006, the F-14 Tomcat was replaced by the F-18 Super Hornet with the square engine intakes, as well as the F-18E Growler. So it did have a pretty good run. And it did serve in operations like Desert Storm, I think also maybe the Gulf War, could be wrong about that. But the F-14 was definitely put to good work, and definitely came in handy for operations. The F-14 also features in my two favourite movies, both the original Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. And in the first Top Gun, Goose, hopefully you guys have seen the movie, but how Goose dies is actually pretty accurate, which is sad, but it's accurate to one of the main drawbacks of the F-14. So the F-14A had two Pratt & Whitney T30 engines, and for the design of the aircraft, the engines weren't really strong enough. They could work, but they weren't really what the F-14 needed. They needed a bit more powerful. So later down the line, the F-14 Tomcat B was upgraded to having, instead of having two Pratt & Whitney T30 engines, it got some new F110 engines, which were a lot better. And the way you can tell between the A and the B is the TF30 engines have kind of like a nozzle, like the tapered, so it goes like out, and then it kind of like goes in a bit and then like a circle. The B engines are just a normal engine. It's not tapered, so that's one of the main ways you can tell. And then, like I said, the D variant is a bit more electronically advanced, so it has actually some like better screen displays and some stuff like that. See if we can also fly underneath the bridge. We'll go out a tiny bit. We'll sweep our wings forward so we have more lift, but when we pull up, and also put our flaps down, we're going to come out with afterburner just so we have a bit more control and we're not going too fast. And then once we are aiming for it correctly, go underneath both bridges if we can. So there's the first one.
Pull up. Altitude.
I'm going to afterburner.
Altitude. Pull up.
And go underneath the other one and then pull up.
Altitude.
Like that.
Altitude.
Which is pretty good. But yeah, so the F-14 was both used by the Navy and the Air Force because back in the 1970s, the defense budget for the US was billion.
Altitude.
They just kept throwing a lot of money at aircraft. They were like just spending so much money on it. So then they were, when it came to a new aircraft in the 1970s, they were like, okay, we need to probably relax a little. Instead of the Navy and the Air Force getting two separate aircraft, we're both going to have to like decide and pick one to use both. And originally, it was the Aardvark, the F-111, but the Navy wasn't really too impressed with it. So they kept designing and then eventually came out with this, the F-14 Tomcat, which is pretty cool and is my favourite aircraft. Right, and now we are going to land. I'm going to put my flap to 2, no, I'll put them to 1, and we'll air brake a bit. Make sure our wings stay out, so they're not on auto, they're just on forward. Gonna use the air brake quite a bit. The F-14 Tomcat does have like heavy duty landing gear because it was made for landing on the carrier as well, so it can actually take quite a hard hit, but we're going to see if we can kind of smooth the landing a bit. So I'm going to put my gear down and air brake a bit more, throttle all the way down and glide into the landing. Pull up a tiny bit and just let her sit down like that. There we go. And just like that, that is some facts about the F-14 Tomcat. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. So goodbye guys, bye.